You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
So you asked, oh, by the way, what's your name?
Aliyah.
Aliyah. Okay,
Yes.
Raul.
What is it?
Raul.
I've only heard that name once before.
Really?
Raul. Yeah.
Yeah, the only famous Raul I know is Fidel Castro's brother, so.
I don't even know. So you're saying like religious beliefs?
It could be.
Evolutionary?
It doesn't have to be religious, but it could be.
Mhm.
So I've talked to people about their belief in God. I've talked with
Mhm.
people about some paranormal claim. I've talked to people about
Yeah.
political claim. Just some belief that you're fairly certain of, and that is kind of foundational for you as far as your understanding of the world.
I don't know. I think I don't know. My beliefs are kind of weird. I guess if that makes sense. I don't believe in a God. I used to go to church for I think 13 years of my life every single Sunday, and with my parents, my brother and sisters. And currently, my oldest sister doesn't believe in God, or I guess she's agnostic. My mom's agnostic. My dad is agnostic, even though we've all been to church our whole lives. Um, I don't know. I think since, I'm a science major, it's kind of more of an evidence thing for me. It's like, how do you know there's a God? There is no proof. Everyone says, well, you have to have faith. I don't know, for me, it's like they believe in a book that someone wrote. It's just kind of weird to me. Um, Evidence is like the main thing. There's nothing to prove that God is real except for what you feel inside of you. And people are like, oh no, this person died, came back to life, and saw that there was a God. And I'm like, yeah, the brain does crazy things. It really does. Like when you die, brainstem completely, like everything, obviously you're gonna dream something. Like if you're in a coma, you're gonna, have your brainwave activity be increased and everything. You're gonna see things that not everyone, sees. And I just don't really believe in it. But also, like, my beliefs are weird because I kind of believe in, like you said, paranormal activity, stuff like that. I don't know why, which kind of contradicts my own beliefs of having there to be evidence. But there is more evidence in paranormal beliefs, videos and stuff like that, than there is in a God. And that's just kind of how I am.
Okay, those are two great options for us to talk about.
Weird.
What direction would you like to go? Would you rather me ask you about your belief that there isn't a God, or your belief in the paranormal?
Probably isn't a God, because I have
Okay.
more thought back to that.
Okay, sure. So how would you put this claim in a statement, in a sentence? There is no God, or not quite that strong? How would you put it?
I would say
What is your
there is
claim?
no God because there is no evidence of a
Okay.
God.
So there is no God. So that's
Mhm.
your claim.
Yeah.
On a scale of 0 to 100, how certain would you say you are that this belief is true, that there is no
Well,
God?
I can't be. Well, I guess I would say like 80%.
80%. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, because, obviously I don't have evidence that there isn't a God, but there is no evidence to support there is a God. So they kind of just mash together. And like I said, with my science background, it's just kind of like, in science, you have to have evidence to support a claim, support a hypothesis, and everything like that. So it's just kind of like there is no evidence that there is a God. So I'm saying 80%.
Okay.
It's so weird.
I'm interested in knowing how you reconcile two things you said. On the one hand, you said that you believe that you need evidence for a belief.
Mm-hmm.
And then just now you said you don't have evidence that God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
How do you
Exactly.
reconcile those two things?
It's just kind of like, since there is no evidence that there is a God, then my belief, like, kind of just goes to then there is no God since there's no evidence. But there's also, I don't even know how to explain that. There's also no evidence that there isn't a God. Ooh. But still. I don't know. I feel like things like this, you can't change people's minds, because my thoughts are just there. Um, just because I don't have evidence to support my claim. Now I have to think about that. What have you done? Let's see. Well, usually, okay, so let me think about it this way. I'm taking a statistics class, and usually when they're we do like our statistics thing and our calculator and everything, and if it doesn't equal the equation, we say there's insufficient evidence to support this theory, just because something doesn't equal that equation. This is so weird. But since there isn't sufficient evidence, we go to something else and we say, since there isn't sufficient evidence, this is this. But if there was sufficient evidence, we would go to the other one. So I guess that's kind of what I'm saying with the God thing. Since there is insufficient evidence that there's a God, there must be no God.
Okay.
It's so weird to explain. Only like if you were in the class, you would like understand. But that's what we're doing right now.
So you're saying it's not so much that there isn't evidence that God doesn't exist. You're saying there's insufficient evidence that he does exist.
Yes. And so since there's insufficient evidence to conclude that, then the other theory has to be true.
Okay.
It's so weird.
Yeah. No, I think I see where you're coming from. So you hold this belief that there is no God, and you're 80% sure of it because of insufficient evidence.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
I mean, there's evidence that Jesus was a person, but there is no evidence to, I think that was an accident.
Yeah, it sounded like it.
There is no proof of what he did. Like, people say he rose from the dead. I was like, okay. All right. I don't know. It's so weird to me. And there's other stuff in the Bible that doesn't make sense. Like Virgin Mary had a baby without having sex. In science, that's physically impossible. And that's also kind of what breaks it down, is like me being in science and starting, like, I guess when I started to kind of not believe in God was like 9th grade, when I started to really get more involved in science and stuff like that. And now that I'm kind of like, in college and I'm in that degree and we learn literally the breakdown of everything, it's just kind of like all builds up to, like, I guess, help me with my belief.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not like something like I push on people. You know how some people like push their religion on everyone. There's people who stand at the corner with their Bibles screaming whatever they scream. I don't push it on people. I don't tell people unless they really ask, I guess. I'm like, yeah, I'm an atheist. And they're like, why? And I'm like, that's just what I believe. Like, if you ask people why they believe in God, they're like, oh, like faith and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, and it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of contradictions to atheists, I guess, around here. Because, like, everyone around here, like, when I grew up, is Christian. Everyone's Catholic, Christian, always religious. And their ways, like, they believe that their ways cannot be changed. And I guess that's the same with me. But also, I was a Christian, and I changed my ways. I don't know.
A couple of questions come to mind based on what you said. The first question is, what would count as sufficient evidence?
Of proof of God?
Yeah, because you mentioned insufficient evidence. So what would you accept as sufficient evidence?
Let's see. I don't think I would, like, it would have to be, because there can't be evidence of a God, right? There can't be. So he's like very powerful. He controls everything, right? I would have to see something completely, unbelievably, that cannot be explained by anything. Like, nothing can happen that would be able to prove, like, scientifically how something would happen. I don't know if that would really be considered evidence, though. Like, he's a man that lives in the sky. How can you get evidence from that? Which is kind of like still backing my claim of, like, how do you know there's a God?
Okay.
But it's also like, how do you know there's not a God? But also, another thing is, like, why I don't want to believe in a God is, like, like I said, he's all powerful, and everyone believes he's all good, right? Everyone thinks, like, God is so good, he does everything right, and he controls everything, right? Everyone thinks that. But how, like, I saw this from, what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson? Neil deGrasse? I don't even know how to say his name. I saw this from him. Like, how can you believe in a God that's all good and all powerful when there's stuff like childhood cancer, diseases, Alzheimer's, like early onset death on in infants, stuff like that. How can someone who's all good and all powerful control stuff like that and do that and claim he's all good? So there's either, what he said was like, there's either a God that's all good or there's either a God that's all powerful. You can't do one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like another thing that's just kind of like, yeah, like I don't want to believe in a God that does something like that, you know, who claims he's like number one and very powerful, but he's not.
So it sounds like for you, what you would accept as sufficient evidence. Do you have to go pretty soon?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I have class at 11.
It sounds like, I guess we can wrap it up then. Can I ask you a couple more questions? It sounds like what you would accept as sufficient evidence is something that has possibly something that has no natural explanation.
I don't know. Now, there's a lot of things that don't have an explanation, like paranormal activity and stuff like that. But honestly, it would have to be even more than that. Like, I don't think there would ever be evidence that could conclude that there is a God. Like, if like that, now that I'm thinking about it, like, I don't think that there's evidence. Like, people say, like, oh, faith, like, oh, I went through this, like, oh, had a really bad car accident and I came out alive. I'm like, yeah, by chance. Like, if you look at probability statistics, like, yeah, it's a miracle, but it doesn't mean that God was the one who did it. It also doesn't mean that God wasn't the one who did it. So, I mean, like, that's not evidence. Like, that's not evidence that would change my mind. I don't think I could ever, like, think of something that would be enough evidence to change my mind. Some weird shit. I never really think about it. You know? I never, because it's always people arguing. Like, why the fuck don't you believe in God? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why do you believe in God? I'm sorry. You know, stuff like that on Facebook and shit. But yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for your 2 cents.
Of course.
Yeah.